give you 15 minutes.
Well, that's because you knew I was late.
Maybe he's caught
All right.
in traffic.
That's fine.
You know, it's five minutes for a TA, 10 minutes for a professor, 15 minutes for a former mayor.
15.
That's what we gave you.
Well, I wasn't even going to come at all. Actually, I was, and I forgot entirely about it till I got the phone call.
Well, I know it was, did you get phone calls?
Yeah, they called. Bill Vaughn called me. As soon as
You were head to your shoulders in double jeopardy.
it rang, yes, I was watching Jeopardy, and when it rang and I picked the phone up and it said Bill Vaughn, that fast I knew I'd missed the meeting.
Can I ask one other favor?
Yes, sir.
Let's not start until I have at least city attorney here.
Why, is he not here?
He's not here either. I mean, yes, he is.
I think I will start just for the...
I can't get your flash drive to work.
We should all go stand outside watching.
There must be a lot of traffic coming from Boise.
This may be a hell of a...
You know,
She's
somewhere
asking
in
for the city
Arizona,
attorney to be here.
they built a city. I can't recall.
Meeting to order, the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of July 18, 2022. It is 6:12 p.m.
Commissioner Smith,
Present.
Commissioner Collins,
Here.
Commissioner McLaughlin,
Here.
Commissioner Gerber,
Here?
Commissioner Wright, absent.
Okay.
A quorum is present.
Okay, thank you. First item is the consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered action items. They are considered to be routine and are acted on with one motion. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless the commissioner, member of city staff, or a citizen requests an item to be removed from the consent agenda for discussion. Items removed from the consent agenda will be placed on the regular agenda in a sequence determined by the commission. Any item on the consent agenda which contains written conditions of approval from the City of Eagle staff, Planning and Zoning Commission, or Design Review Board shall be adopted as part of the City Council's consent agenda approval motion unless specifically stated otherwise. And the item on our consent agenda are the minutes of July the 5th, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we move that we accept the consent agenda as written.
Commissioner Smith, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner McCauley, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 Chairman votes aye. Next, unfinished business, and we have none. And we have public hearings next, and all public hearings are considered action items. The Eagle Planning and Zoning Commission is taking both in-person and remote public testimony via WebEx if we have some. Meeting logging in instructions are posted for those who are calling in. If you just want to watch the meeting, you can watch on our live stream. So, first item on the agenda is PZ 0622 CU-07-22/PPUD-04-22/PP-10-22, the rezone preliminary development plan, preliminary plat, and conditional use permit for Shingle Creek subdivision. Mike Cook and you're Kent Adamson. Okay, Mr. Adamson is going to do the presentation. Will you welcome and may begin.
This guy going. All right. Well, thanks for hearing us out tonight here for Shingle Creek subdivision. I appreciate Mr. Vice Chairman Gerber allowing us to speak on its behalf and on behalf of Cook Brothers Construction, who's doing the actual project.
Okay, can you move that mic up a little bit closer and probably speak up a little bit more?
Yeah.
Commissioner Smith is deaf in one ear and can't hear out of the other, so we have to be real loud if we can.
Sounds good. Can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you very much.
perfect.
And I might point out, it's not just me.
But I can point out.
Sucks getting older, doesn't it? I know the feeling too. So, when we first started this, I came out to the site and did a neighborhood meeting with the folks out there. And when I first looked at the site, it's quite the thing to behold. It's been quite the process of getting this thing to this point. It has a very checkered past because of kind of the way that everything has developed around it, and then also because of its own unique infrastructure issues that it has. There's a large lot subdivision that borders to the west, and to the east, there's a couple other subdivisions that are now zoned R2 and then up to the north of it is Countryland subdivision, which is kind of what we've modeled this after, which kind of transitions between the R2 and the large lot to the west. And the large lot subdivision was built first to the west, and the R2 to the east was built next. And they kind of, the road to the let me get back to the previous slide here. Skywood Drive right here actually did not even go through at one point. So this was all built as part of this upper subdivision, Countryland subdivision. So when we first came out here, there's also this ditch, Ballantine right here, runs right through the center of the property and comes down this east side. And then it entered right here on the frontage. And there's a bunch of head gates here, come across and goes across State Street, Highway 44 right here. And also there's a pipe that comes off the corner. And so what has happened in the past is this was developed over here, these got developed, and this just kind of got left because of the issues that it had. And there was also a old house sitting right here that apparently at one point was historic. And but it had been changed so much that it was no longer historic, and it had a bunch of outbuildings that were about to all fall over. And it was called the Crack House when I was out at the neighborhood meeting from those guys. But so that's kind of where it started, and it sounds like over time there's been many people trying to develop this, but because of those barriers, it's never happened. So we kind of came into this as we want to do it right. We want to make it so that it's one piece, one parcel, not accessed from two sides, not off State Street and from Skywood, because there was some proposals to do it where they left the ditch and tried to access from both sides. When I called for some of the items from Fish and Game and stuff, they already had them prepared because they'd had them before already. So that's kind of the way we started. And so what we've done is we went and got a 404 permit. We actually moved the Ballantine Canal. It now runs along the frontage here and up the west side and exits here. And then this pipe here is now put in all the way to the piping that was already at this location. And so all that work has been done. And, here was the original ditch through the center of the property with this structure at the corner. And this is looking from Skywood back to the south. It was just a lot of, overgrowth. And this was the ditch on the east side there. So this is what is. They've come in and they've cleaned up that area on the west side, which is what this is. They've put in all that piping, and it's not small piping. It's 30-inch pipe and almost 1,200 feet of pipe overall, so a lot of infrastructure and a lot of big boxes and stuff for that. And this is what's to come, is we basically...
Sir, excuse
go
me,
ahead.
Mr. Chair, excuse me. While we're talking about water and the like, I noticed that towards the end of the package, Sawtooth Legal Department had talked about this, and they sound less than supportive, since I saw words like interference, unsure, no approval given, et cetera. Has that all been resolved since, see, the date on that was May 5th?
Yeah, we have a full license agreement from everyone. They've recorded it. There's, the pipe is in. The only thing that I know that's outstanding right now is there's a box on the corner that needs a head gate, apparently, that we just found out today. So I did not know about it, but Mike Harrison called me and said that that needs to be put in, and we'll get that installed.
Okay. Well, just for the record, it was Mr. Bryce Ferris was the one who wrote this letter, and so I'm glad to see it's all resolved since that time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, so for what's to come is we basically did a cul-de-sac, and like I said, we were trying to mirror what was to the north, which is this guy here, and it has basically smaller lots on the east side transitioning to larger lots on the west side. That's what we've done here. We have the smaller lots here with larger lots on the west to transition from the smaller lots here to the large lots on the west side. And as we come down here, this is a common space area that'll be kind of multi-purposed. It'll have the ACHD drainage in here, along with a little pressure irrigation pump in the back here that's pulling off the box that's leaving the site. And there'll be a little playground in the back here for play area, which is very much mimicked from the this countryside subdivision. They have one that's almost exactly like it. Down here, we've provided a path at for maintenance of this front area without hitting Highway 44, and also for future connectivity to the east and the west. That's what this guy is here. Let's see here. Yeah, and then, like I said, that house that was here, it's all been removed and taken care of. There's going to be, nice landscaping throughout, as shown here, and we just hope to make it a very nice subdivision for the area, an area that's been a nuisance. And this is kind of just the overview of what the Cook brothers are looking to provide as far as housing and that sort of thing. They do a nice product. Is there any questions?
Any questions?
Oh, questions. Sorry, I thought there was a bit more coming. So essentially, these are half-acre lots, and I see, are they in fact going to be some two-story houses in there?
Yes.
I see. Okay. I recall that in your application, excuse me, there's a request from some variance from what the city recommended in terms of easements and, what's the word?
Setbacks.
Setbacks, thank you, setbacks. Could you talk to me about the need for those and why you're asking for them?
Some of the lots on the sides, let me go back. And I think the city did come back on these ones. We were just maximizing space on these guys, and the city came back and specified that this would not be allowed here. We were just backing up to the common lot here, to the buffer space. So we're maximizing space for these larger lots with the setbacks because we add buffer behind it. I think the cities, in their comments, did not allow that. Mm-hmm. So you know, and I don't know that that's a big hit for us. But on the other sides here, you notice these lots, 3 and I can't read that one, but they are very skinny. And so the back of the lots it's important that we get more space for the homes. That's kind of the idea.
So do I understand then that your request is still in force? You're still asking for that?
We are.
Okay, right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
No, that was gonna be my questions also.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we'll hear now from Mr. Williams at the city.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Mike Williams, Planning and Zoning staff for the record. The proposal before you tonight for Shingle Creek subdivision, and I'm going to go straight into the densities, the issues, the comprehensive plan, what the comprehensive plan calls for at this location, and then we'll cover the issues that we saw as staff. The applicant is requesting a rezone, and this property, the site actually has 2 current zoning designations on it. One of those being R2 DA, which is R2 with a development agreement. The development agreement that's associated with a portion of this site has expired. It's basically terminated. Kent referred to Country Land Estates to the north of this that was developed previously. I'm going to touch on that a little bit. But the DA that was associated with Country Land Estates, which was actually on both sides of Skyview, there were lots with Country Land that were never developed. And when Country Land came through, the comprehensive plan designation at the time had a transitional overlay across the top of it, so it wasn't large lot residential, and that's how they, at that time, were able to achieve the transition provided between Countryside Estate Subdivision and Timberland Estate Subdivision. So literally, on one side of the street, it was R2, and on the other side of the street was pushing more towards an R1, as long as they could provide that transition. So what they're requesting is to rezone the R2DA portion of it, and what it'll do, it'll re-up the development agreement. So essentially, you're going through a rezone. And a development agreement, although you may not think it as a zone, it actually is. It's identified within the zoning districts within Eagle City Code. And the reason it's identified within the zoning districts is because development agreements are a contract for a rezone. So that's, in this case, if you choose to recommend approval of this, you'd be basing that off of the development agreement being part of the zone. And it would be bring a new development agreement associated with the R2. And then the southern portion of the site where the old existing home used to be located is zone AR, which is agricultural residential, which has a minimum lot size of 4.7 acres, which that property never had that minimum lot size. And so they're going to rezone that portion as well. They're asking for 12 lots. 9 of them will be buildable with 3 common lots, and the overall site is 4.41 acres. So the new zoning designation, if this were to be approved, would be R-2, which is 2 units per acre, with a development agreement, and the P, which stands for PUD, Planned Unit Development. The reason they're doing a planned unit development is because some of the lots are below the minimum lot size required for the zone, as well as they're requesting setbacks that are reduced from what's typical of an R2 zoning designation. Vicinity map, I think everybody pretty much knows where it's located. It's adjacent to State Highway 44, West State Street. It has Countryside located on the east property line and Timberland Estates located on the west property line. Kent's already showed you a picture of the plat, which is far better than the picture I have on mine, but this is the best I could do when I did the SNP. I covered how many acres. I've covered the number of lots. The actual dwelling units per acre on this property is 2.04, so it's 0.04 over than what's typical of 2. I don't see that as being a big issue at 0.04. The minimum lot size is 13,295 square feet. The the minimum lot size required by code is 17,000 square feet. But with the, by providing an offsetting increase in open space, they're permitted to reduce that minimum lot size, and they have provided the additional open space to compensate for the minimum lot size. Their minimum lot widths are in conformance with the code. Their minimum lot frontage is in conformance with the code. Their total acreage of common area that's proposed is 0.97 acres or 42,340 square feet. Based on your offset increase of open space, with the open space required, they are only required to provide 38,420 square feet. So they actually exceed what would be required. Percentage of common area is 22%. 20% would have been required. And percentage of common area space is active open space. I calculated 16.5% of that open space. They're required by code to have 15%. So they're in conformance with all those items. Issues of special concern, comprehensive plan land use map designation. I touched on that. It was previously, well, right now it's large lot residential, which allows 1 unit per acre to 1 unit per 2 acre densities. The development is adjacent to a 2 unit per acre density and a 1 unit per acre density. And previously, what was approved for a portion of this site actually matches or mirrors what they're proposing with this application. So the commission would need to make a finding that although it calls out the property as a large lot residential designation, it would be in conformance with the comprehensive plan in regard to providing a transition. It mirrors what's adjacent to it. The other issues of special concern is front setbacks based on location of the separated sidewalk, setbacks in general, and that'd be on lots 4, 5, and 7, block 1. And the plat I looked at today had 4, 5, and 7. And then streetlights and overhead power. Those were the major issues. All the rest of the conditions I have in there essentially deal with plat notes and rewriting a few of those plat notes and possibly adding an additional plat note. And in the pathway turnaround area, Mr. Noyes, our pathways and our trails and pathways superintendent, provided a memo today. I provide you with a copy of the memo as well as the applicant. They are proposing a 10-foot pathway adjacent to State Street. That's always been shown on the plat. ITD, when they came back with their response, ITD wasn't requiring a sidewalk on that side of State Highway 44 because they're going to do one on the southern side of State Highway 44. But we'd like to see the continuation on the north side as well. And so it was already shown on the preliminary plats being proposed. The city's still going to require that. The one thing that Mr. Noyes was requesting is that they provide a cul-de-sac or turnaround point at each terminus of the pathway until that connection is made at a future date. And then also a facility that holds doggy bags at the intersection of the pathway, the 10-foot pathway, and the pathway coming out from the subdivision, which is 8 feet. The large lot designation, I just touched on that. It's suitable for single-family residential adjacent to estate residential uses. Densities range from 1 unit per 1 acre and 1 unit per 2 acres. I would say if you're going to make a finding, it says suitable for single-family residential adjacent to estate residential uses. This property, maybe on one side, it does have 1 unit per 1 acre, but on the eastern side, those aren't estate residential uses. Those are neighborhood residential uses. So what it's doing is, what's being proposed provides that transition. Setbacks. We know what was requested. We know what's required by code, by Eagle City Code, and you'll find this on page 17 of 23 in your staff report. And as a second discussion bullet, what's typically required in an R2 zoning designation is 30 on the front, 30 on the rear, 10 feet on the sides, with 5 foot additional for second story, and 20 feet on the street side. In this case, what I'm recommending does not have a street side because there's no street side setbacks within this development because there's already a common lot located between the street on those corner lots and the side of that lot, so they can't gain access there anyway. So what staff recommended, with the exception of one thing, follows what the request was. So 30 feet on the front, 36 feet on the rear, on the front for a front load garage. They had requested it to be 25 feet measured from back of sidewalk. By going 30 feet on the front and 36 feet, that is measured from the property line, so that actually covers the 25 feet based on the request from the back of the sidewalk. Staff did support their request for 25 feet on the rear, and that's a reduction for what's typically required in R2 zoning designation. And they did not request a waiver of any of the side setback, so staff recommended that 10 feet with the additional 5 feet for the second story. The only one that staff was not in agreement with was 10 feet on those common lots. The depth of those lots, if I remember right, and I could go pull it, or Kent can get up and address it in his rebuttal. In staff's opinion, there was enough depth on those lots with that 25-foot rear setback and the front setback to provide a fairly significant building pad site for the structure itself. So staff didn't support the 10 feet. Also, you're dealing with a rear easement of 10 feet, and I will guarantee you that anybody who builds a home down here, the next thing they're going to be asking for is our code actually allows for an encroachment into the rear setback for a patio cover. And so by doing the 25 feet, that would still allow for the encroachment of a patio cover. What it won't allow for, well, the 25 feet will, the 10 feet will not, is I never knew so many people wanted swimming pools until the last 3 or 4 years. 25 feet will actually allow some room for a swimming pool. We've had to vacate easements, go through easement vacations, and you've seen them, just so somebody can get a pool in their backyard. You put a 10-foot setback on these, there's not going to be a pool. So anyway, that'll allow room for a pool. The only other two conditions had to do with street lights. The plat didn't show where the street light locations were, and in the plat did show overhead power. And we just want to make sure, even though it's always a standard condition of approval, we still want to ensure that, I like to put them in as a site-specific condition of approval as well. So when a final plat comes in, we as planners are keying in on that to ensure that what we're seeing with the construction drawings and everything else, that overhead power is being removed. New site-specific condition of approval, if you choose to send this on with a recommendation of approval, that we would like added, and it would be site-specific condition of approval number number 20. And it says, owner shall comply with the Trail and Pathway Superintendent's recommendation memo dated March 18th. That should be July 18th. I don't know where I got March today, but it was a long afternoon. Should be July 18th, 2022, and any subsequent revisions required by the City Council. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions for Mr. Williams?
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner?
So, Mike, the increased common area makes up for the reduction of minimum lot size then? It penciled out?
And Mr. Chairman, Commissioner McLaughlin, that's correct. It did pencil out.
I always hate to see the reduction.
I know.
Other question, Commissioner?
No, that was it.
Commissioner Smith?
I don't think so at this stage. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay. We'll move on now to public hearing input from the public. And let's see if we've got sign-ups here. Okay. Just have one
Excuse me,
person signed up.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just before Mike fully sits down. Mike, is this, this piece of property is considered infill, an infill area?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Smith, it'd definitely be an infill area.
Right, okay, thank you.
Okay, we have one signed up, Mr. Farnes, and you said you didn't want to testify. Okay, and we've got some other people here. Would any of you like to testify? Just raise your hand. We'll have you come up and say something if you would like.
Sorry, for clarification, is it testify or ask questions?
I think both, yeah. We can't ask questions? I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, it's not a question and answer forum because it's a public hearing, but if you have concerns, by all means, stand up and voice concerns, and then he could probably answer those questions. Or if they have a question based on your concern, they can ask me. How's that? All right.
Okay, come on up.
So my concern,
Okay, I need your name and address.
name is Dwight Wallace, address is 91 North Lost Canyon Place, Eagle, Idaho 83616. So
Okay,
I live
great. Thank you.
countryside. My concern is the buried pipe that was done to bury the irrigation canal. What happens to that? Is the property line now all the way up to our fence, or is there still an easement within that? That's my,
Okay, and you're adjacent to where this went in?
correct,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, we can get an answer probably from, hold on a second. That's it, that's your only question?
That's my concern,
Okay,
yes.
all right, great.
Are
Okay.
you, excuse me, are you on the east or the west side?
I'm on the east side.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else please testify? Okay, we will have Mr. Adamson come up and provide additional comments in regard to the question. Anything else he'd like to say to close?
Thank you, Commissioners. Kent Adamson again. On the piping, this came up at the neighborhood meeting with, quite a few folks as to how that was going to work. It's all on this proposed property is where the pipe is on, and then they have redone the easement to come from our property 25 feet in. So there is no longer an easement outside of this proposed property. And they're going to put a fence up of their own to split this so that, the parcels that we put in, people don't try to go take their property between their fences if they don't move their fence right away. So we'll have our own fence. There'll be, everything is on our side of the property line, and the old easement that spanned both sides is no longer there.
Okay. Okay, we will.
Sir, Mr.
Yes,
Chair?
Commissioner Smith.
I would like to ask Mr. Adams a couple
Okay.
of questions, actually a couple of suggestions. What I'm about to say really has nothing to do with whether this application goes up or down. I just wanted to take at least a moment to share with you a couple of comments about your written application. A couple of little mistakes in there that I think are worthy of at least looking at, so from a matter of correctness. So by the time the Eagle City Council looks at it, you may want to have a look at it. So looking at your letter addressed to Mr. Williams on July 6th, okay? There's a a reference there to the fact that the development is located on the north side of the street, Highway 44. And it talks about 1.5 MI west. I assume you mean miles, but it doesn't seem an appropriate abbreviation there. You might want to think about fixing that. Next paragraph, second line, you talk about the crack house, my favorite place. And you have the word nuance. I suppose you meant nuisance in that particular place. So you might want to address that one. Also, and very minor, the City of Eagle is uppercase C when you're referring to the City of Eagle here. And also, the Idaho Transportation, ITD, is not requesting any further ROW. I've lost my mind. What's ROW?
You're right away. Yes.
You might as well put that in too and clarify. Also, towards the end of that page 3 of 6, you refer to groundwater has been 9-foot BGS. I assume that means below ground service, because I saw it in the report later, but it's not defined there either. So just because of my natural intelligence, I figured out. But you might want to fix that one while you're at it. And that's all I could find in that particular thing. As I say, I just thought they should be cleaned up while you're at it there.
We'll correct them. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I had in that particular thing.
Commissioner Smith, Commissioner McCauley.
Yeah, you had mentioned the need to put in a head gate. What's the process for that and timeline, and what have you been requested to do there?
We just now found out, at least I did today, that was required from Mike Harrison. You know, the Cook brothers, he called me and then I called Mike, and they'll be on it promptly. I don't have a timeline right now that I can give you, but they'll get her done. You know, I've worked with these guys for 2-3 years now. They're very prompt and they do what they say they're going to do.
Is that part of the final approval, or has that been positioned as such, or
I
that'll
don't
just get
believe
done
so.
with a handshake?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we just got notified today, so I wasn't even aware.
Okay.
So.
Other question?
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Adamson, I just had one. The picture that you showed had a line of trees or 2 lines of trees. Where is that on the property?
That is on the west side, and
It's
what
on-
that used to be was actually a driveway that went to a parcel clear to the north, above where the country land is up there now. And we're maintaining a lot of those trees.
Yeah, I saw that some of them were kind of dead, but that's very beautiful, having those trees there. So I just wondered if you were going to try to maintain them.
We are trying to maintain most of them, yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, Mike Williams, Plain Staff. Chairman Gerber, Commissioner Smith, to address your sawtooth letter from earlier, and Mr. Abson stated that they've done license agreements. The city now has, Mr. Abson provided us with copies of those executed license agreements between them and the Ballantyne Irrigation District, so we do have those. Commissioner Gerber, back to Commissioner McCauley to address the issue about the head gate. That does not have to be an additional condition unless you want to place as an additional condition site specific, but there is conditions within the standard conditions of approval that require the applicants to comply with any conditions that may be placed on them by irrigation district, drainage district, canal companies. So staff is aware of that head gate as well. So that will be part of, when we're reviewing the final plat, when the construction drawings come in, we'll actually be looking for whether or not that head gate's already been installed or will be installed as part of the construction.
Thank you.
Okay, we will close the public hearing at this point in time and open it up for discussion by the commission.
I can open, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Smith?
A nice little project, looks like it's well designed, neat. tucked in. I think the fact that it's not going to dump out onto 44 is a benefit. I think that there's been a lot of thought in terms of cleaning it up, moving the irrigation ditch. At first I thought it was going to be called A River Runs Through It, but probably not big enough to be a river. But nonetheless, I think it's been very ambitious, the amount of work that's been done already just to prepare it for this particular point in time. And so kudos to the owners of that property. And so I would not be opposed to this development as presented today.
Mr. Chairman, I feel the same way. It just always makes me sad when I see lots that are not minimum lot size as required and requests for different setbacks. We have the setbacks. We'd like to have everybody maintain the setbacks that are in our code. But other than that, I think, for this piece of property, it's probably, a nice subdivision.
Comments?
I agree. I wish I would have taken a second to ask about the only thing that was in question was the 10-foot setback, and it sounded like the city wanted to hold firm on that. And if I would have thought of it, I would have asked if that was acceptable.
Well, if the city, if you put it in there, it'll be acceptable, certainly. No.
Okay. No, I'm good with it as is, and I agree with what's been said. I live close by there and know that that's been empty lot for a long time, and I think that'll look pretty nice.
Okay. Well, my observation is that we have a lot of these little infill parcels like this that seem to be surrounded, and to me, this is probably as good as you could do with something like that. I think it's a good proposal. I do like, as was mentioned, the fact that the entry and exit will be on the north end rather than right onto State Street. I think there's a little road right there right now, but that'll be gone. And so I'm certainly supportive of what's been proposed here and the recommendations that have been made. So I'd certainly accept a motion from someone.
I'll make a motion.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner McCauley.
I would recommend for approval with the standard and site-specific conditions outlined by planning and zoning staff, RZ-06-22/CU-07-22/PP-0-4-22/PP-10-22 rezone preliminary development plan, preliminary plat and conditional use permit for Shingle Creek subdivision with an additional site-specific condition of approval that reads, owner shall comply with the Trails and Pathway Superintendent's recommendation memo dated July 18th, 2022, and any subsequent revisions required by the City Council.
Okay.
I will second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further comment? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
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 And the chairman votes aye also. So the motion carries. Okay, new business is next on the item. We have none. Reports from the commission.
I would just like to make a comment, Mr. Chair, that I've noticed for the last several weeks that we've been here that the current the janitorial services have done an exceptional job. This I don't know why I didn't notice it before, but it just shines like a new pin out there. Just very bright, very clean. So whoever's doing it is doing a super job.
I think it's staff, actually. They have staff, city staff that do those things, right? Yeah. I think they used to hire people, but now there are enough staff, they do that, the parks, everything else.
All right. Well, it's looking exceptional.
Good. Yeah, I'm sure Mr. Williams will pass that word along to Parks and Rec, the mayor. Is it under Parks and Rec or Public Works? Sorry. Okay. City attorney reports.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for sitting through with us. And staff report from Mr. Williams.
Wow, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, we typically don't get done this early, so that gives me a couple hours for staff reports. Actually, I don't want to stick around that long myself. Your first meeting in August, God, I'm messed up on months. First was March, now it's your first meeting in August, we do not have, take that back, Charlotte, doesn't Bill have a zoning ordinance amendment coming before him for their first meeting in August? I believe this administrator does have ZOA coming before you that's scheduled. And then as far as any land use applications, it'll be the second meeting in August, and you will have, if I can get all the reports done, you will have 2 subdivisions, and they're fair size subdivisions.
That's not the city zoning stuff that we had seen from Mr. Vaughn before.
When was the last, he was just here, wasn't he?
He was here at the last meeting. I think.
Okay, then no, you won't have a meeting in August then,
The
possibly.
first,
You'll have the meeting for this, for the findings for this.
okay. Should be a short.
It'll be a
meeting,
short meeting.
If we get a quorum.
Yeah. Then Spring Valley, we're still waiting to hear from ACHD before we can move anything forward. To date, we have 7 plats that we're sitting on, waiting to hear from ACHD on the first plat. And then once we hear from on the first plat, the next 6 will follow shortly thereafter, and they're getting ready to submit another one here shortly.
On the question on another item, across the road from where this development's taking place, there is a berm that runs along, or there used to be a berm, and then there was another one, and now it's gone, and they're just flip-flopping back and forth with berms along that south side of State Street. Are they ever going to make up their minds on that and have something there?
Mr. Chairman, what you thought was a berm was not a berm, but it looked like a berm. And all it was when they are constructing the residential portion of that development, it was probably a lot of the topsoil and everything that they just stacked there as part of their grading to store it there. At the time, the city had requested that they remove that because all it was good for, number one, was growing weeds. Number two, there were other portions of the site right adjacent to State Highway 44 that were to be developed with a really nice pathway and everything, and they were required to install that pathway and associated landscaping as well by a date certain. They did not meet the date certain, so right now they don't get any more building permits until it's complete. So that's why you've seen what you thought was the berm, why it's been removed now, because all that portion that is between the highway and where you're seeing the residential being constructed is commercial.
I've seen some flags going in along there lately, last couple of days, and so they may be getting ready to start doing something.
Hopefully that's promising news.
Yeah. Okay. Other question? Yes.
Are you able to share any updates on the Avamore application at this time?
I'm not pausing because I don't want to provide you an update, but right now, the way the department is structured, the plan zoning, our department, I take care of what we always refer to it as the lower 48. I take care of everything south of the foothills. Daniel is tasked and kind of a project manager for Spring Valley, and then Morgan is the project manager for Avamore. She's still processing that application. They're going back and forth for additional information because that's a big take. And it's a large task, whereas when Spring Valley, it was 30-plus public hearings when we brought Spring Valley through years ago. And that was, well, it's hard to describe. It was difficult at best. But that was only 7,000 acres, whereas Avamore, what I think we're looking at is, I can't remember if it's 16 or 19,000 acres that we're looking to annex. So, and what's different between Spring Valley and Avamore, as you well know, is Avamore takes in 2 other counties. So we're having to work through different jurisdictional issues because even though it may be in the city of Eagle, you still have to deal with health districts, judicial districts, law enforcement. Then you have this highway district here that only is Ada County, so you got to figure out how you take care of the roads outside the county, because there's portions of what's going to be annexed that I'd say the bulk of it may be outside of Ada County. So that's what she's having to work through at this time. They are proceeding on, I can tell you they're proceeding on water rights, where they have filed for water rights so they can get all the water, and then all that water will become part of City of Eagle water system eventually. And so they're constructing water system and tank improvements at this time.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay, thank you for the update, Mr. Williams. Would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night, thank you, Mr. Davis.
Totally fine.